And in this video I'm going to guide you through a real-world example. Yes, finally we're going to build a real big regular expression. And for those of you who are impatient to start working with PHP, after this video I promise we are going to work with PHP. So for this example we're going to match HTML tags. Now you should realize that this solution is not perfect and is quite naive, but I think it'll do well for the sake of the tutorial, since it combines almost everything we have learned so far into one big regular expression. It could very well look quite confusing to you at first, but that's okay. I didn't understand a thing about regular expressions when I was first learning them. So, here we have 4 different HTML tags. We have a B tag, which is pretty bad, but we'll include it for the sake of the tutorial. We have a strong tag, heading 1 tag, and we have an anchor tag, an A tag for a link. So, how are we going to do this? Well, we're simply going to work from left to right. Note, however, that we are not trying to match this text between the tags. We're only trying to match the opening tags with the greater and less than signs and the closing tags, and we also want the attributes. Okay, so the first character, let's just start at the beginning. The first character is a less than sign. How do we match a less than sign? Very simple, just put a less than sign. Now you'll see all of them get matched. What's up next? Next up is the name of the tag. This name always starts with a letter. It never starts with a number. So how can we do that? A character class, A through Z. And since users can use both uppercase and lowercase letters, we'll just do both. We could use the ignore case flag, the I flag, but we're just going to use character classes for now. Now, we have now indicated that every tag starts with a letter. However, as we see here, tag names can include numbers. So what we want to do is use another character class right after it to indicate that, hey, the second letter and onward can actually be numbers. So there we go. Now we have H1 matched as well. But now another problem arises. So far things were quite simple, but as you see we are not matching the B tag anymore. And that's because we're selecting the less than sign, so that works. Then we're selecting an uppercase or lowercase letter, so that would work. But then we're selecting another letter or number, but we have a greater than sign here. So what we want to do is we want to say that we want to match 0 or more of these characters. So the way we do that is by putting a star, and now you see all of these tags get matched. Now, finally, there is of course the greater than sign, so we'll put that in. Okay, now we have matched 3 tags, but we do not have the A tag matched, and that's because there's an attribute within it. So how we're gonna do this is, it's going to be quite complicated, or it will look quite complicated. But what you need to remember is that not every tag will have an attribute. So we have to make sure we tell the regular expression, hey, this attribute is going to be optional. Now, what do we make optional? The entire attribute. So not just this, or not just the quotes, no, this, including the space. Now, in this example, we are just going to assume people always use double quotes around their attribute values, rather than single quotes or no quotes at all. So, also, we will assume people always use at least one space between their attributes. So how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, let's just work from left to right once again. First we have the space, so how are we going to do that? Well, we could just put a space and that would work. However, it's perfectly possible that that a user would use tabs or line breaks to separate their attributes. So it would actually be better in this case to use \s. And of course we also need the plus sign because there can be more spaces or more tabs. Also, we're going to want to put this in parentheses and make it optional. So now we still match those and we're still working on this. This doesn't get matched yet, but we'll get to that. Okay, so next up is the attribute name. We can match this the same way we did with the tag pretty much, except it will never have any numbers. So we'll just do this. Oh, I made a mistake. Of course, this greater than sign needs to be at the end. Alright, so after this, after the space, we're going to put A through Z, A through Z. Next we have the equal sign, but first we need to make sure that we can use more than one letter, so we put the plus sign there. Next we have the equal sign, which is just a literal equal sign, and the same goes for the quote. Next we have the attribute value. Now this can be pretty much anything. The only thing it cannot be is a quote, because that will be the end of the attribute value. So what we can do is we can use a character class that will match anything that is not a quote. So caret quote. And then right after it we're going to put another quote. And this character class can be repeated multiple times. And now do you see we actually match this? Now you could use dot plus here, but that's less efficient due to something called backtracking, but you don't have to worry about that for now. Just know that this is a more efficient solution. Okay, now this seems to work, but let's say we had another attribute here, title equals test. Now it doesn't work anymore. And the reason for that is that we try to match 0 or 1 of this entire expression. What we need to do is 0 or more, so we actually need the star symbol here, and now it works perfectly fine. So the last thing we need to do is match these closing tags. Now you might think, okay, we'll have to somehow skip all this text and then match the closing tags, but there's a much simpler solution. Basically, the closing tag is exactly the same as the opening tag. Closing tags will never have attributes, and we have made attributes optional. Next, we know that this will be exactly the same as the opening tag. So what we can do is simply put the / here, and as you see that would match all closing tags, and just make that optional, and now you see everything gets matched. And there you go, that's your first big regular expression. It's not perfect because it makes a lot of naive assumptions about the user, but this does show how to go about making a good regular expression. I showed you the thought process behind it, and that's very important. it's possibly even more important than just giving you perfectly written regular expressions while you are still learning. Now, I hope you found this useful, and if you thought this was confusing, by all means just watch this again, or if you think you do understand it, try to write this thing by yourself, or better yet, try to improve it, because there is definitely room for improvement with this regular expression right here. Alright, in the next part I'm going to do something that you have probably all been waiting for. We're going to work with PHP.